Hey, Mama Vicki, welcome back.
Hey, Mama Jane, how are you?
I'm doing well. I can't believe it's already February.
I know I'm in my podcast dress. I think I wore this last podcast.
It's great. I'm
It's easy, it's simple.
I'm wearing a beautiful Metanoia
I
t-shirt just because
do
I
like it.
ordered it and I'm just excited. So yeah, welcome.
I'm
So
at that
we
stage where I'm always hot. Despite the freezing outside, I'm low-key always hot. So I have to dress like it's spring or summer inside and then prepare for winter when I leave.
yeah, well, I know my
The
husband's
cycles and
been
sanctity, beautiful, beautiful things. We can talk about that on another
that's right. That's
podcast.
right. How our bodies affect us, right? The
For
body and
sure.
only the body makes visible what is invisible, both human and divine.
Mhm. And today our podcast is the joy. I love that we picked the joy of raising daughters.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Well, we've been doing a whole theme of joy, right? Because, well, first of all, as sanguines, that is one of our gifts, is just joy. We're just joyful people.
Mhm.
Um, but also
Happiness is cool.
it's just so easy to go down the negative.
Yes.
So, and since we both have daughters and we have spiritual daughters,
Mhm.
it's just beautiful.
Goddaughters and yeah, it is.
Granddaughters,
Yeah.
I'm so
Yes.
excited.
I know that is exciting. It is.
Yes.
It is. Being a grandma is a totally different. It is. It's great. They're right. The grandmas of the world. It's right. It's fun to be a grandma because you have some wisdom under your belt.
That's right.
You're
That's why
and
we,
so and yeah, that's why we're here to share
yeah.
our wisdom. And staying to our saint of the day, I picked Blessed Maria Victoria. Honestly, Fornari Strata. She was born in 1562 and died in 1617. And Blessed Maria lost her husband after they had been married for 8 years and was left to raise her six children alone. In this incredibly difficult time, she depended on the intercession of Mother Mary, who appeared to her in a vision, promising that she would protect her children and her, and encouraging her to strive to love God above anything else. Inspired by this vision, Maria vowed not to marry again, but to raise and educate her children until they were old enough that she could become a religious. In time, she founded a religious order, the Order of the Most Holy Annunciation. Both as wife and mother and a religious sister, she performed many works of mercy.
Beautiful.
Clearly, it is beautiful. Clearly, I was caught by her name being Victoria and all, and then my Claire is Claire Marie. But I just it's so inspiring, and both of us are mothers of many. So
Mhm.
to be left just to be left alone with six children is no joke.
Yeah, well, and I was even thinking of you as you were reading that because I mean my kids are farther spread, but she had 6 kids in 8 years. So,
Yeah.
that was but that also was the day, right? And I mean, we could go on a whole conversation about that
Yes.
of the beauty of natural family planning to be able to
Hmm.
child space naturally and things like that. But and we don't know how many girls and how many boys. We didn't really look into that, but she had 6 kids and she understood. I mean, thanks be to God, she saw, she received a vision from Our Lady. Not
Right.
not all of
You
us
understood the
are.
assignment.
Yeah, not all of us are so blessed like,
No.
oh, Mary gave us that vision. But we are all called to raise our children.
I do remember young, I was always striving, when I got pregnant with my first child, I knew I was going to raise them Catholic. I didn't know exactly how that was going to go down, but I knew that was what we were going to do. And just very early on as a mom, I heard that as a mother, actually, it might have been in my trusty worn out mother's manual, but basically it is my job as a mother, like to be gifted the gift of motherhood. It is my job to get my children's soul to heaven as best I can. Definitely when they're children and they don't have their own thinking power like before confirmation. And I took that very seriously. And so that really is a blessing to me, that the fact that, sorry, the sun's being crazy in my window here. But anyway, I am grateful that I got that message. I'm not perfect, clearly, but I always aspired to I took the responsibility seriously. And
Mhm.
all my kids, they could, I mean, they do have a pretty decent foundation.
They do. They really
So,
do. Your
and I'm
your kids are
grateful.
and that's really what we're called to do is give them the foundation because the hardest part is allowing them to practice their own free will and saying no,
Yes.
you
I
know.
mean, that's
one of,
That's the trick in motherhood.
yeah,
And
right. And
they,
grandparenting, right?
yes.
Of like
Hmm.
watching your children raise their children at a different age in a different way or whatever. So,
I'm so grateful though. I'm remarried, and so I have a stepdaughter who has a little girl, and then my number two son and his wife have a girl and a boy. And honestly, to watch these grown children parent, I mean, I could get all sorts of tearful. They do great. They really are doing fantastic. And that is a joy. I mean, sure they have bad days and bad moments, don't we all? And so,
yeah,
but it's a joy to watch them. And I guess it does give you a little, I did something right through the grace of God. By the grace of God, some good message got across.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah, absolutely. So I had a wonder question for you, Vicky, is I'm
mhm.
gonna, I want to dive into, because I had my firstborn was a daughter, but
Yeah,
you didn't have a
there's
daughter
four,
for,
four.
you had four
I love,
boys,
yeah, I
and
love to
then
tell,
you had five.
yeah,
I mean, she was the fifth.
four. Yeah, she was the fifth kid. And I love to tell that story because by the time I had my fifth kid, we just didn't find out. I was like, whatever. We're having boys. And people would ask me, what are you gonna do if it's another boy? And I'd be like, huh, the river. I mean, what do you mean what am I gonna do if it's a boy? I guess raise it with the rest of them. And then shocker of shockers, she was a girl. And then I kind of thought I had flipped to a girl switch, maybe why I had this thought, I don't know. And I had a boy. And then I had two more girls. And then like through my second marriage, I do have two stepdaughters, and it's just been, your daughters are interesting. And I know I've said this on the show before. I feel like I like to learn things the hardest way possible. God's like, you could take this easy path, and I'm like, oh heck no, I'm going that way.
Because as a secondary cleric, you thrive on challenges, girl.
Yes, so I'm like, that looks way too easy, Lord. I'm gonna take this super challenging way. And my oldest daughter, my birth kids is 25. My girls are 25, 20, and 15. And I also make the joke, do not have daughters 5 years apart because you will have a teenage daughter in your house for decades. It's terrible. It's not terrible. We're talking about the joys, but it has taken this long. My oldest daughter, um, it taught me how to be a mother to a daughter. And we did have a lot of struggles. And um, I wish I could have done things differently. Like, I had boys. She was my fifth child, so I could do the childhood thing. But girls really start coming into themselves, in my experience with my daughters and my stepdaughters. About 13, things start to get a little, they're trying to find their position in the family, and you're the matriarch, and they challenge that constantly. But it's not so much like boys and dads, or boys and they kind of want to buck heads, but girls are a lot more emotional. And it took a long time. My feelings got hurt all the time. And this is before I had coaching and didn't understand that I didn't have to operate on every feeling I got. And so I found my daughters hurt my feelings more, which that's a me thing. It's not a
Yeah.
them thing. And so
Yes.
fortunately or unfortunately for my oldest daughter, Beth, she had to, oh, see, I'm gonna get teary. She had to endure um me learning how to
Um,
be a mom to daughters.
yeah, yeah. I'm gonna take the stick so you can kind of
Recover.
yeah. And so my daughter was my firstborn. If you've heard my story at all, we practiced natural family planning,
Mhm.
and first month we got pregnant. So I kind of figured that I knew what I was going to do. And then of course, then there was 7 years of dryness. The plumbing didn't work. And so she and Steve was in the military, and Steve,
Mhm.
because of his job, he was a armor officer, and so there was a lot of training
Mhm.
exercises. Like he didn't wasn't home other than her birth. The next time he was home for her birthday was when she turned 6,
Wow.
because they were always out in the field
They
during that
were,
time.
that's what in my first marriage, they were always in the field too.
Yeah.
It was very much, I mean, I can't, because I have unfortunately experienced being a single mother, it is different. It is not the same, but you're still alone.
Yes,
And,
yes,
and
exactly.
so
Yeah.
it's a lot.
It is a lot. And then because we were the only two, and then I chose to homeschool, you're right. Like we were very tight, but then also, uh I know this is about the joys, but I'm gonna just put it out there. I was listening to a podcast back in January when I was driving my son back to school, and this gal was just kind of talking. She's a coach, and she was talking about our stress factors, how we deal with stress. And she talked about,
Mm,
which we all know, right? How do you deal with stress? Your cortisol goes into fight, flight, fawn, or freeze. But what she did when she talked about the fight aspect, she talked about what it looks like to fight the stress. And all of a sudden, all of these memories of me
mhm.
yelling and screaming. And I was really emotional. I mean, thanks be to God, it was on the drive home. So I was by myself. I started crying. And when I got home, I think it was actually the next
Yeah.
morning, I text the group to the kids and just said, you know what, I'm really sorry. Like again, I did the best I could. I didn't understand, but I never really understood it. It was my dealing with the stress
Yes.
and because of who we are, because of our family of origin, that was the way we were modeled to release stress. We weren't taught to freeze during stress. We weren't taught to fly fly away.
Right.
We were taught to fight.
Yes.
And unbeknownst to me, unfortunately, I was fighting myself. I was fighting the world, right?
Hmm.
And anybody that got into it. So, but one of the things that I'm really enjoying, you joke about don't have girls 5 years apart because you're going to have a teenager. My girls, I have two girls, and they end up to be, I say 11 years apart because Rose was born in September 29th, and
Hmm.
then Trisha turned 11 October 29th. So
Hmm.
10 years and 11 months
Yeah.
exactly they're apart. And yet it's so funny because I still say I have twins 11 years apart because they are so similar
They
and
are
yet they're so
similar.
different.
Yeah.
Their countenance is very similar because and people will say, do you have twins? I'm like, no, they're 11 years apart. And at one point I wanted to put the two girls in a room together. Now,
Hmm.
I mean, by the time Rose was 3, so Trisha was 14, and my husband's like, no, you don't do that. So, I say my Rose is my rose among my thorns because she's got an older brother and then two younger brothers, right?
Hmm.
Um, and but it is a joy. It's a beautiful. We've had our difficulties, and one of the other things you talk about how, of course, with Beth being your first daughter, not understanding, like, as they're growing up, kind of hurting your feelings. One of the things that I didn't understand was um when she, when my daughter had moved out and she would come home and visit and things, I she and my dad and my husband just click,
Hmm.
and they'll just sit and talk. And even now, the other kids, like, we'll have a family like Christmas or something, and they'll continue talking, and everybody else is kind of done socializing, so they'll go off to their own rooms and things, and they'll still, and I'm just, at first it really did tick me off because I'm like, wait, why are you talking to her and you can't talk to me? But now I've realized, like, they're just so similar. And it's just, now I can love, I find great joy
Hmm.
watching, kind of being the third wheel, listening to them, participating in the conversation, but then also not participating in the conversation. Um, and especially now she'll be having her little baby girl in June, which is so exciting.
It's very
And just to
exciting.
see that shift as well with my husband,
Hmm.
and and also seeing the shift with her and I, how we've come. Because yeah, it is a little bit. I think back on her. For me, it was a difficult time, 11, 12, but that's when I had two kids back to back. And if we kind of evaluated it, counseling, whatever, it was, she probably felt, you know, negated or whatever.
Oh, sure. I
And
mean, I look back now at Beth's situation. You know, in mothering, when I grew up, we just didn't question it. I mean, our parents are the ultimate authority, and there was no negotiation. I did not even think about it. Just wasn't even on the table. I could be as mad as I wanted to be or whatever, but there was no democracy in my childhood. Not complaining about it. I'm just saying the idea wouldn't even come to me
Yeah.
to
To question
balk,
authority.
to
Yeah.
question the authority. Yeah. And and my daughters definitely question authority. And so I guess, one of the things in raising my daughters, and right now I'm really thinking about Beth, is just that I was so shocked to have her respond. And I guess, I didn't even think of some of the situations from her point of view. So in raising her, I was able to see now. I mean, she's a person with feelings, and some of her reaction isn't just to make me miserable. It's her own, and now I have more tools that I have to control my own self and my own thoughts, but also I
Yeah.
can pass them on to my daughters.
Hmm.
My Nancy's 20, and we are very much alike, and very, very hot on fire, react big and loudly to anything and everything. I mean, it could be you might walk in and see us and you're like, are they happy or not? Like, is this happiness or anger? We're really like, where's this gonna go? And it's just, yeah, the joy of, we're raising women,
Yeah.
and a lot of our podcast is on being confident, and a lot of women spend so much time not being confident, not being empowered,
Yeah.
feeling less than.
Hmm.
And it's a gift to have daughters and raise them empowered. So despite the I fought authority situation
Yeah.
with daughter number one, it definitely I'm glad she's strong. I'm glad. And none of my girls, well, Haley, my oldest stepdaughter, has a daughter, but my girls don't have kids yet. But Beth is married now, and our relationship has changed with that.
Yeah, right. That and well,
Hmm.
and it's supposed to. That's the other thing. It's like it's supposed to change. That's
Right.
that's the aspect. It's funny. One of the stories that Trish and I were talking about one time, um, about you know she's of course like she's older, and then especially when she went away to get her master, she was distant. So
Hmm.
there is this gift of leaving home because then you can
Yes.
kind of see the home in a new perspective. And
Hmm.
she came home one time and she was sharing with me about the gift of um how did she put it? She said, Mom, one of the things I really appreciated about you is that you really never cared what I looked like, what I wore, as long as I wore something warm or, had socks on. And so I could wear stripes with plaids. You wouldn't say a thing. And which and how she evaluated that was she said that gave me the opportunity to really discover my own unique fashion. And of course there's the story of her at 14,
Love it.
you know
With blue hair.
yeah, with the blue hair. She wanted to dye the blue hair.
She was
And
like the most confident. She was probably the most confident woman at that family reunion at 14. She
it
really
was
was.
and yet
Looking back.
and yet I mean she and I had a long conversation about that. I mean, as she was going into her teenage years, uh I kind of, it's a long story, but I gave her this rule of like this, the walls, right? You got to stay within the walls. So it can't be immoral, it can't be illegal, it can't be unhealthy, and it
Yes.
can't be permanent. And when she asked me about blue hair, I'm like, well, it's not permanent. um I really did beg her to do it after that family reunion, but
I
she
love that she did it. That was my
she
favorite part of the entire reunion. Her blue
it
hair.
was, and it was such a, that was, it was such a growth experience for all of us. And later, one of the things she was able to share with me, because again, we don't have the language, we don't know how to express ourselves, right? But later she said to me, the reason why I wanted to have blue hair was I was so self-conscious of people looking at me, that at least if I
Just
had blue
put it out
hair,
there.
there would be a reason for people to be looking at me. And I
Wow.
thought, wow, how wise. And for me, as this Catholic homeschool mom, and we went back to see our Catholic homeschool families and they were like, what are you doing? And I'm like, it's hair, right? Like, let's put it
Absolutely.
into perspective. But being able to walk with her like in public, acknowledging her, like that was really a test for me to say, how much am I going to love my kids? No matter
Yeah.
what they do, right? Like,
Right.
do I love them unconditionally no matter what? And that was really the beginning of like that, really breaking that open and challenging me to love her no matter what.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
which,
Nancy, my
yeah,
20-year-old shaved her head
I remember that. I remember
during
that.
my life is such a blur. I really feel like it was
It was a couple of years ago because
right,
I
but
was
I'm trying
the,
to remember. I feel like it was around COVID. I'm trying to remember if it was before or after.
it
Well, it was definitely before. It was either before or during.
was during COVID. I
It was
because I was,
during because Beth was home. Beth had come home from Spain,
mhm.
and I had worked the night before, and she put a TikTok up. And how I don't remember how because I'm not on TikTok. And anyway, I see that she videoed chopping of her hair, looking crazy to this crazy song. I say that in the most non-judgmental, loving way. But I watched it. Actually, I think Beth showed it to me when I got home. She was like, "Hey, check this out." And my daughter, who had hair this long, had a shaved head like basic training. And I was like, I really was like, this is my face. And Beth's like, oh, you're going to judge her? And I was like, no, but she had hair to past her shoulders when I left for work. And now she
She
has a
doesn't
buzz cut. And so I'm just needing a moment,
to
go
process
figure,
this.
and Nancy could rock it, just like Patricia rocked that blue hair. She looked good. And
Nancy
Nancy,
did.
Nancy has a nice shaped head, and so she could pull it off with her confidence. So, but it did teach me you got to let. A lot of times, I think girls challenge us. Somehow, we judge ourselves on how they are, the kind of girl or woman they're. Somehow we judge ourselves more harshly than like the boys. For some reason, to me anyway, like I didn't take it as such a self-reflection if they did stuff, but when my girls did it, I took it so to heart, like it was about me, and it was never about me.
Yeah,
And Nancy, like you said, Nancy shaving her head and me not freaking out and telling the world like it's hair. I mean, if she chooses to keep her buzz cut for life, then I guess so be it.
yeah,
And it was a big lesson in honoring their walk
yeah, yeah.
and being
And
approachable. It is so important as a mother to be approachable.
mhm,
I have a good relationship with my mom, but it was never, as especially young, it was not one that I would like. She would not be on the list of people I'd go to problem solve, which after my life choices, I think it's important for a parent to be one of the go-tos.
and
Because
yet that's difficult because
yeah,
I mean, this is supposed to be the joy of daughters, but I mean, I
and it is
used the excuse that I was raised by the stepmother, and
right,
so there was always that disconnect, and especially during the teenage years and things like that. And I mean, thanks be to God, your mom's old enough. She's the oldest, and I'm the youngest, and I always kind of considered her my kind of my second mom.
right,
Um, and I could go to her, and
yeah,
again, that's also that beauty of the red tent and having multiple relations with different women. Uh-oh, what happened?
yes. Or what do you mean?
I don't know. My screen just,
Well, I
can
see
you,
you. I
huh?
can still see you and hear you.
All right. Well, I don't know what happened. My computer just decided to lose it here. All right. I'm back.
Yay, you're back.
Oh, technology.
Dramatic
We love you,
pause. Dramatic pause.
technology.
Yeah,
Yes.
it is a joy. And honestly, with Claire, I really get to experience the joy. Like that has been a gift for me. Well, number one, I mean, I definitely credit time. I mean, I've been a mother longer. I've gotten two girls out of the house. And I found coaching and found my path and relied on God more and didn't rely on myself a lot. So much of my motherhood, especially my older daughters, I relied on me. Like and
Yeah.
we can't do it. We weren't meant to do it by ourselves.
Yeah.
And
And for me, again, that experience that I had when I was driving back from Dallas with that aha moment, that was just an aha moment. And kind of, I mean, I jokingly tell my kids that they can spend all their inheritance on therapy because of all the things that I
Yeah.
did wrong.
Yeah.
But
Right.
really, I mean, just the fact of owning up, like I was broken when I was raising you. And
Hmm.
that's another interesting conversation that my daughter and I had, my oldest daughter and I had when she was getting ready to go move away to go get her master's. And she was like, Mom, by the time you were my age, you already had, like, you had me, you'd been homeschooling, you'd already dealt with infertility, you had a second one. Like, I can't even imagine that aspect. So, and it's just a different phase. It seems like I've been reading a lot of articles about, you know, they're getting married later. It's a harder economy. Um, so buying a home, raising a, getting married, raising a family, it just seems like so overwhelming and uh,
Well, society
impossible.
is definitely
Or
telling him that.
that's right. Society's definitely telling them that. And there is a truth. I mean, my husband and I were talking the other day, and he's like, he looked at me and and he goes, we're the last generation that is doing better than our parents. And I was like, as a coach, I was like, well, that's a thought. Um,
Yeah.
but there is some evidence to it. So there is some mercy and
Mhm.
supporting our kids and everything. But yeah, the joy of the motherhood, like I another joy that, because Trisha is so much older, she's almost the second mom. She's always, she was 8 by the time Johnny was born.
Mhm.
And so she was always that second
I
mama.
remember. I remember that's back when Graham was sick, and I thought Patricia was grown because
She
my
was
oldest was
9,
only three or four, and so she was like should
the
have had a
big girl.
job by then.
Yeah. We had that conversation about walking around Washington,
Yeah,
D.C. and
DC.
poor
I remember
girl got
because well, she
tired.
eventually got in the stroller because she was exhausted. Because what 8-year-old can make the DC monument trek? Not many
That's
without a
right.
break. And
That's
this
right.
is back before we were demilitarized, so we were like, we must go.
It was kind of interesting.
Wow,
But
looking back, yes.
it's been a great gift for her because, again, one of the things I think for her, like, I've been open. I hope not, probably not as open as she would think, but I have been open to listening to her perspective of,
Mhm.
like, things. And I
Yes.
mean, especially teenage years. Oh my goodness, I'd always take her shopping for clothes because I just have no clothes set. Like, just put clothes on me. I don't care how it looks. Like, I'm just not fashionable,
Yeah.
Um,
It, shopping's a big stressor for me too. So, you know what, my girls, because I mean, when Beth was a teenager, we were very financially strapped, and so she is the master of
yeah,
thrift shopping. And then she made the other girls. I mean, then it kind of became a fun thing because
yes,
she was the oldest sister, and she would take the younger girls out to thrift shop. And I mean, I can give you $25 to thrift shop, and everybody comes home with something. So, that's you know, it's there's so many joys in raising a daughter once you realize again it's not about you. I mean, and I think moms need to hear that and just embrace it for what it is and trust, again, God put everybody on this planet for a reason, including your daughters, and so
yes,
he has a purpose for them, and it's not small,
yes,
or
yes,
even if it is
exactly.
small, it's part of the big picture. And to
Hmm.
empower them and to let them, you know to clearly teach them respect and um, modesty and things like this. And I think we've done a pretty decent job of that. But it's
Hmm.
if you're if you have a daughter and you are struggling and it does not seem joyful, I highly encourage you to reach out and get some coaching, because a lot of the struggles are, you can put them into perspective and manage them more bite-sized. And if you're
Hmm.
like Mama Jane and I, and you were raised in a fight is the option to stress, and you don't even know there's another option. Like, for so
Hmm.
long I did not know that not fight, like there was any other option in the fight or flight. Like, I didn't
Yeah.
know about flight or fawn or freeze. It was just
Yes.
engage.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Because we
Enemy
just modeled what
engagement.
we were modeled, right? And so giving that opportunity, and even, yeah, you're right. Like, the mini me, that aspect. Oh,
Mhm.
she's a mini me. She's not a mini you.
No.
She
She's her
is
own
her
woman,
own.
her own.
She may have tendencies. She may have physical features, like, both my girls have my body type. Um, do I wish they had their dad's body type? Yes. I mean, like, why are the boys all thin and skinny and we're
I
not?
know,
But
right?
we're supposed to be voluptuous. That's the womanly aspect. But
Well,
anyway,
what's funny, my girls, I mean, Beth is tiny,
she
and
is.
then Nancy's more like me,
Hmm.
sturdy, and
Hmm.
then Claire's kind of a mix.
Yeah. 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 And that doesn't it doesn't say anything about you.
No.
It's, and it's it's this womanhood passing on, again, you and I have talked about this books, maybe we'll pull it out one day, but that red tent aspect
Oh,
of
yes.
coming together as women. And yes, there's going to be some journey, there's going to be some struggle as they get to that teenage year, because what I always tell the confirmation parents is, like, you want them to give you a
Yes.
hard time. That's part of their process, because they're trying to they're testing what is true. Are you walking the
Yes.
walk, or are you just telling them something?
And
And
testing their ability to maintain, to defend themselves, to stand up for what they
yes,
think is right.
that's right.
And I know that in a parenting class one time, I heard that you want your kids to fail at home. You want them to struggle at home because we love them.
Yeah,
The world doesn't
yeah,
love them like we do.
yeah,
So,
that's right.
and women have enough of a time,
Mm-hmm.
um, just in general.
Mm-hmm.
So just to let them, so don't, so almost, I wish I'd had this perspective with my oldest daughter, but almost take it as like a compliment if you're getting some kickback,
Yeah, that's right.
and
Because they're
then,
safe, you're safe enough to kick back.
mhm,
You're right. That's exactly right. And that's yeah, that's so beautiful. Of We want the home to be the safety net, to let down the hair and to be the real self, because
dye it blue or
if
shave it off or,
these people that are living here are going to love you no matter what, I
mhm,
hope. Now, if
right,
you live in a really,
ideally,
really dysfunctional, I mean, we're all dysfunctional, guys. We're
yes.
all sinners. We all have our woundedness. We all have our brokenness. Nobody's perfect. And
Mm-mm.
so, if you are a daughter that has maybe some mom issues, some, motherhood wounds, as they call them, look at, I want to encourage you to maybe look at your mother in a different way.
Yes,
Um, and with gentleness and mercy.
yes.
And the same thing with moms. I mean, if you don't find joy with your daughters, that's a good exercise. It's one of those exercises that I'm always asking my clients to do, is the 10, Lord, I'm so grateful for, and find 10 things that you're grateful for that particular daughter, or that
And
particular
honestly,
son.
once you
But
start, you usually just can't stop. 10's not
yeah,
enough.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And then we can affirm them, and remind them how beautiful they are, how grateful we are
Yes.
for them. Because, yeah, it's, with my oldest daughter, well, with both the girls, I'm so grateful. And I love it when we have a girls' day out.
Hmm.
Um, we've gone to Truth or Consequences in New Mexico. They have the hot springs, and we've done that a few times. And just we've created memories of the womanhood,
Hmm.
and it's beautiful. um and now we're going to have the little woman, right, the little baby
Yeah.
with so that's good. So Catholic Divas, we hope that you can find joy with your daughters, and we would love to hear your response. Write a review, tell us what you find joyful for your daughters. If you don't have daughters, like, if you are struggling, if you're a single woman, or if you for whatever reason, the state in life, you just haven't had children, remember, we're going back to our aspect of the feminine genius. We're all called to the maternity. So how do you mother other women that are your daughters? There's so many young girls that I call my spiritual
I know
daughters. They're not officially my goddaughters, but I just could say my
this needs to
spiritual
be a
daughters.
two-part podcast because I could go
Yeah.
on and on. I've got a lot of young women nurses that I feel are my little, take
Yeah.
them under the wing. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, there's so much joy. There really is way more joy in raising of daughters and bonding in womanhood than there is not joy.
Yeah, well, the enemy and the world wants us to be divided and to be you know, comparing each other, being jealous and nitpicking. And that's not what the Lord wants us to do. The Lord wants us to be in communion, support one another, affirm one another, and love one another.
Yes.
So yeah, so we'd love to hear either through a review. Please, again, subscribe, share, do all the things, like, to help us get to that 10,000 downloads. We're so close. And if you are on Facebook, please join us over there at Cycles and Sanctity. And if you're not, just drop us an email. We'd love to hear your response. We would love to hear the stories that you have of your joy of your daughters. All
Please share
right.
them.
We will see you next
All right. Well,
week.
I'm going to close real quick with the prayer
Yes.
from
Yes,
Blessed
yes,
Maria
yes.
Victoria, our saint of the day, not today, but our saint for today.
That's right.
Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Blessed
Amen.
Maria Victoria, you trusted in God's perfect plan and relied on Our Lady to help and guide you through the difficulties and sufferings of life. Pray for us to have that same trust and pray with us. Merciful Father, help us to trust in your goodness and to follow your will for our lives. May we live our vocations with generosity, make our homes true domestic churches, and help us to perform the spiritual and corporal works of mercy for the love of you. Comfort all who grieve the loss of loved ones, protect all children, bless the order of the most holy Annunciation, keeping it faithful to you. Make us virtuous leaders. We ask this in the name of Jesus. Amen. Amen,
Amen.
Father.
Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. All right. Till next time,
See you next
Catholic
week.
Divas, we will see
All
you.
right.
God bless you.